So we're getting into it, you guys. Welcome back to the Deal Flow podcast today. I am super excited to ask Cameron, and he may or may not know this, all crazy questions.
Let's do it.
About the craziest stories he's ever experienced in real estate. It's just fun because I feel like sometimes we have to like, you ventilate about like, gosh, did that really just happen? What that person said or did, or like, did I really just walk that place? That because have you bought any brothels before?
I definitely been in some.
Not with the organization still running.
No.
Well, it's got running. A functional operation, actually. Yeah, it's a great brothel that I purchased.
There have been houses that I've walked where it's still running for sure. I haven't gone there to be a part of that. I've gone there to buy the house.
Dead people?
Dead people, yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What about crime scenes?
Yeah, maybe we should put a content warning because I mean, it could be triggering.
Let's do a content warning, and then somewhere in the description, I'll put a chapter list based on like different, timestamps, and you guys can skip past stuff if you're like, I don't know if I can handle that.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be fun to do just crazy stories from 400 home purchases.
Yeah, and thousands of walkthroughs and
thousands of walkthroughs. Yeah.
And so like, and to set the stage, and anybody that invests in single family houses already knows this. And honestly, anybody that's investing in any sort of place that people live in. But like, we're not looking for brand new houses that are well put together.
Right.
And so all of those houses, those thousands of houses that we've walked, they are distressed for a reason. And usually that comes down to, drugs, uncleanliness, which is also kind of falls into drugs, mental health, crime, death. Like a lot of times it revolves around that. And so a lot of the houses that we're walking, there's just some things that you see that are tough. I mean, I've seen it enough to where it's kind of normal, but that's why I love, like you've heard me say in the other podcasts, probably, I talk about grandma clean houses. Yeah. And so like those feel so great to walk because they're well taken care of. They're just outdated.
Right.
And we get those quite a bit too, but also we get just the worst of the worst. And what's funny is every time I walk a grandma clean house or like a house that needs a little bit of work, the person's so apologetic, like, oh, I feel so bad that you're walking this and that you're seeing this and that, that we had a leak right here that created a little bit of a water stain. Like, I'm so embarrassed. I'm like, you don't even know.
You're like this is, I almost stepped on heroin needles the last house.
I have. Yes.
Oh my God.
So, I had
give me like one that comes to mind. Like,
so the heroin, you brought up heroin needles. Yeah. So I walked a house that was probably an inch or two deep of heroin needles everywhere throughout the house. It was so
an
bad.
Inch or two deep?
Yes, it was so bad. And there was a little pathway to walk.
That's like a McDonald's ball pen for children, but with heroin needles.
Yes, it was terrible. It was everywhere.
Oh
and
my
I was
gosh.
wearing shorts and like I had like some Nike free tennis shoes on.
Dude, you need steel toe boots for that sucker.
After that house, this was early on. I never would go walk houses without jeans and boots. In the middle of the summer, it's 105 degrees out. I'm wearing jeans and boots in every single house. Cause I know I didn't get poked, but I was paranoid.
Scary.
I was paranoid that I did, even after leaving the house, because I was so careful, because you could just see them everywhere. And I was so careful, but I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac. And so I got into my car. I'm like, what if I did get poked? What if this happened?
Oh my gosh. No.
Yeah. And so that house...
I had a friend that got HIV from getting poked by a needle.
No.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. He's in the medical field, but
okay. So
terrible.
I looked up cause I did not get poked. I didn't feel it. I didn't, but afterwards I was like, I was so like grossed out and I was looking up all the stats of like, if you do get poked, and it's incredibly rare.
So rare.
Even if you did get poked to get any sort of transmitted disease, like HIV is incredibly rare, but then hepatitis,
Hep C or
Hep C. Yeah, those aren't as rare to get, but it's still very rare. So I was like, even if I did get poked, odds are in my favor. I'm still good to go.
Yeah. But sheesh, that's like a lot.
Oh yeah, that's
a lot.
And actually in this house, which the crime scene was not there, but apparently it was just a really bad person that lived there, and there had been a party there. That there had been 2 people that were murdered at the party at that house at one point. Yeah, this was before I bought it. Like that was before I walked it. The crime scene was cleaned up. I didn't see any of that. But
have you ever found money or drugs stashed in a wall?
I have never found drugs in a wall. And I've never found.
I guess St. Louis is like far enough away from like the Mexican border that it's like you'd have cartel.
Yeah, I've never found like drugs
storage
hidden anywhere.
Oh my gosh.
Or maybe like my crews have, and they just haven't told me.
Oh
about
my.
It. Yeah.
Or they're like,
but
we haven't seen you in a long time, and you're hitting up a lot of all inclusive resorts there. Where'd you come up with the money? Yeah,
we've never found money or drugs. We found money before, but it's not like stashed in walls. It's just in, they left a nightstand with a couple $100 in it. We've never found a roll of thousands of dollars. We have found some really cool things though.
Yeah. Like what? Like what's the coolest thing you're like, man, that's memorable?
So one of my favorite things, it was $6,000, and we have it in our storage lot or storage unit back in Missouri, but it was this really high-end record player from like the 40s or 50s.
Dang, like a collectible.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome, and it still plays. It still works. Yeah. So that one was really cool.
That's rad.
Yeah, we've gotten like really like nice pool tables because people don't want to move pool tables, but there are certain brands that are really expensive. So we found those before. I'm trying to think like any other big ticket items that we've found.
What about guns?
I have never found guns. One of my buddies found a stash of guns.
A stash of guns.
A stash of guns. That's actually a really cool story of how they were able to like help the sellers. So these people, their grandpa or not grandpa, their dad dies, and they sell their house. And in the selling process, they're talking about like my dad had all these antique guns that and we don't know where they went, and they're not in the house or anything like that.
Right.
And he must have given them away and not told anybody, or he must have put them somewhere, outside of the house that we just don't know about and we can't find. They were actually really sad because they were like memories of their dad.
Right.
And so my buddy, he bought the house and he was rehabbing it, and the guy had stashed all of these antique guns behind the walls. And so he was able to get these guns, not tell the family about them and sell them on. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, he was able to call the family, and the family got to come and get all of their dad's guns. And so it was a cool moment for the family and for him, cool. Where he got to make them whole. One of the coolest stories for us that was like that. It was actually crazy. We'll have to do an entire podcast on this.
Really?
Where I can read the letters. Except they're back in Missouri.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So we found letters from World War I. Yes, between the person, the female, and she had 2 lovers. And they're in both of them, like she's trying to decide between which one, and they're talking about each other. Dude, it's so wild. There's an Instagram.
It's like The Notebook.
Oh, dude, it is. And then we're able to look up marriage records and find out which one she picked. Yes, it's wild.
That's cool.
Yeah, actually, that would be a fun podcast just to read through the letters. Lexi and I, one time on Instagram Live, we read through them. Where
that's fun.
Yeah, because she's got 2 guys that she's mailing back and forth to. They're talking about everything that's going on. It's just absolutely wild.
And now we have Instagram, and you can message 100 people at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Swipe right.
So, but we were able to take those and give them we tried to give them to the family, but we couldn't find the family.
So you still have letters.
I still have the letters.
That's cool.
Yeah, I still have the letters. Maybe if I could ever get a hold of the family, they would love that.
Yeah. Maybe if you get famous enough, they'll just like hear the podcast and then.
Yeah, when we posted it all on our Instagram, we tried to find the family.
It's hard.
Yeah. So because this was like we were able to look up marriage records, we were able to look up like who the family was. We just couldn't find them. We Facebooked people. We looked, we asked on our Instagram, like if anybody knew the family, because this was not the previous owners of the house. It was like owners that had lived there a long time ago.
Yeah.
So they hadn't been around for
Got
probably
it.
50, 60 years. Cause I think the house was built in 1888 on this one.
Jeez,
Yeah.
that's
so
crazy.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Why don't you tell me one of the craziest like confrontations you've had with a person regarding a house, whether it's like a, you know, somebody that you're trying to buy it from or somebody that, I don't know. Have you had any like confrontations or anything like that in this type of work? I don't even know enough about the space to know when that would happen.
Yeah, I've had like some like houses, like there was one that I was at where apparently it was a divorce situation where they were getting divorced, but they still both owned the house. The husband was trying to sell it behind the wife's back.
Oh.
And so I was there when the wife or soon to be ex-wife showed up, didn't know that he was trying to sell it to me. And they started screaming at each other to the point where I thought that it was going to get violent. It never did. And I remember just kind of like sitting there watching it, but it wasn't towards me.
Right. Have you seen any other type of fights or anything?
Yeah. So there was one, this was one of my very first ones that I went on where, which I you know, one of the wholesalers was African-American, and he brought me to the house, and the guy literally straight up looked at him and he said, "I'll never sell my house to an
N-word.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And the wholesaler, right? I even told him, I was like, if you want to beat this guy up, I'm in. Let's do it. But the wholesaler didn't. So like that could have gotten worse, but it didn't. Yeah, we just.
If you want to beat this guy up,
like I'm in. Well, let's do it. Literally to his face. So that was wild. Where it's just like, how?
Is this like an old,
Yeah, how could you say
like,
something like that? How
redneck looking guy?
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, it was in the city where there's a lot more, there's just a lot more demographics and ethnicities in the city versus like if it wasn't like out in the country where, you know, it was in the city.
Yeah.
So
Weird.
Yeah, no matter where it is, it was absolutely uncalled for and completely wrong. But it was like there, I was really taken aback by it. And you know, I would guess probably some mental health issues or something like that, some sort of weirdness to that guy. But I still would have joined in and beat him up if we needed to.
That's wild.
Luckily, we just left. We left, and that was
didn't
it.
have to beat anybody up.
But that happened. Let me think of other. So there's been multiple times where I've been like very scared in a house.
Yeah.
So one that
like it might be haunted.
No, never felt that. I mean, I guess there's houses that I've walked like, cause you know, sometimes I'm walking houses until 7, 8 o'clock at night. And in the winter it gets dark by 5 o'clock. And so I'm walking houses where it's still dark out and, they have the electricity's cut off. And so I've got my flashlight or something like that. And I'm walking it. And those are always really scary because of squatters. We have definitely walked in on squatters before.
You've walked in on squatters?
Oh yeah. Many times.
Are you allowed to kick them out?
Squatters?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not my house.
There?
Yeah. It's not my house. So I'm telling the owner like, hey, you have people living in your house.
There.
Yeah. Not my house.
There's all those laws where like they're actually backing up squatters and stuff.
In St. Louis, they're pretty good about it.
They're a little more red.
Yeah.
Missouri's pretty red.
But there's so many things. No, well, one of the things in line with squatters. So we are rehabbing a house right now that is being squatted in, and so every single night it gets broken into. We finally got it secured, but there was like six or seven nights in a row where it got broken into.
Whoa.
And they would just use the corner of the house as the bathroom because the bathroom wasn't like, it was wild what they were doing, and they were doing drugs in there and stuff. But here's the wild part about this. So we got it happened and we cleaned it all out. We got a security camera that lets us know when it's being broken into, and alarm will go off, all that good stuff. We one night literally watched people break into our house from our phone. And we called the police department and said, hey, there's people breaking into our house right now.
Yeah.
They asked us, is anybody in danger? And we said, no, the house is vacant. And they said, all right, well, we might get to it tonight. So like legitimately,
wow,
we just had to watch people break into our house. And then this is where like it gets, you could get political on this, where my brother works for us and he's like, well, I'll go down there, but he's like, I'm going to bring my gun. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to ask you to go do that. Yeah. But honestly, like what other choice did, we're not going to do that. But for some people it's like, well, the police aren't going to get them out of my house. Like what
do we do?
Yeah. What do I do where I'm literally, we bought this house for $350,000. We're putting $150,000 into it. And it's like, it's a huge investment.
Yeah. You have to protect the investment.
Yeah, it's in like a St. Louis city, but it's in a nicer part, but it's also surrounded by just St. Louis city. There's a higher population of homeless people and whatnot. So
I have a friend in the Big Island, and sometimes it's like Wild Wild West over there. And she had this dude that had basically turned her entire house into like a squatter camp, but there were also like 100 cars. Like he had 100 broken down cars that were there, either like stolen that he was working on or like fixing up, and all on her property and her land. And basically her neighbor, super awesome dude, was like, I'll take care of him, And
I just don't want to know how you took care of him.
And she's like, no, don't do that. And he was like, no, literally the cops came to me and they said, hey, this man is wanted. If something were to happen to him, we won't check into it.
That's wild.
We will not look into it. If you decide to do something, just make sure that the body can't be found.
No, they did not say that. That's not a chance.
They alluded to it.
Yeah, I mean,
and so she flew over there, talked to the guy. They were able to get all of them out, and I guess for like $5,000 they paid somebody to get all the cars out and stuff. But I was wild. Like, that's crazy. Like literally, but the cops were for it. They were like,
get this guy out.
They don't have enough people there,
dude,
and there's crime, and they're like, what are we going to do? And
that's how our house is. And I want to I completely understand for the police officers where this is in just a higher populated area where there is a lot more crime just because of the high population.
They're like, gosh, we got better things to do with people that are in danger.
Yeah.
Like
in St.
real
Louis,
danger.
St. Louis is, I think, the murder capital of the United States. Like
wow.
Oh yeah. There's so many. And so I completely understand where they're coming from of like, hey, if nobody's getting assaulted or hurt right now, we've got other things to worry about than your flip, And so I understand that, but then that puts us in like a weird position of what do we do? Do we just sit and let these people break in? Yeah. And so, and like, I am not a violent person in any way, shape or form. And so like, I'm not going to send my brother down there to kick me. Like, dude, it's not worth it. At the end of the day, like, if they destroy our house, which they have, we've probably spent legitimately $10,000 to $15,000 fixing up what they've caused. But I'm like, at the end of the day, that's not worth you going and getting hurt or you going and getting in a position where you have to hurt somebody. Like, we're fine. But it's wild. It's still so wild. So that's a house that we're actually doing right now, off of good old Missouri Ave in St. Louis, Missouri.
What's I guess like just like a cool story. What would be like one of the easiest or fattest deals you've done where you're like, whoa, that payout was way bigger than I thought. I wasn't expecting that one, or maybe it was like really easy to get it. Do you have any like stories where you're like, man, that's a memorable deal?
So the most memorable deal that I've ever done, I didn't make any money on.
You didn't?
No.
Why was it
so
memorable?
much fun? So I walked this house. I want to say that I bought it for $45,000.
Okay. And
the lady was the nicest lady I've ever met. She was so sweet. Her house was trashed. And life had dealt her a pretty terrible hand. Her husband, her husband got into a head-on collision at 70 miles an hour. He was driving home from work, and a drunk driver got on the interstate the wrong way and hit him. And he lived, but not well. He was, pretty much incapacitated in a wheelchair, brain damage, all of that. And then on top of that, they have a son who is mentally handicapped. And so she's got a son who, and I think the son was like 16 years old, who was mentally handicapped. And I don't know, and forgive me for this, I don't know like the levels of that. But he was wheelchair ridden as well. And severely handicapped. Yeah. Couldn't talk, severely. So she had both of them that she was taking care of.
Oh, it's hard.
And such a nice lady, like the nicest person. And, it was just like so kind. And she didn't know what to do, where luckily a church had set up a house for them to live in, and that made it more accessible, because this was very soon after her husband had gotten in the car accident.
Yeah.
And so a church had kind of helped make a house for them that was more accessible for her. So they were going to move into that. They didn't have any savings. Her husband was the breadwinner. And so, she needed everything that she could get out of this house, but the house wasn't worth very much. And I just I can't speak highly enough about her, just the nicest lady I've ever met. And so, I was able to give her $45,000 for it. And she was so, like, she bawled her eyes out when I told her I could give her 45, because I think she owed like 32 on it or something like that. And so she was going to get 13 grand. She had reached out to other people that weren't able to get her $45,000. And so I put it under contract for $45,000. And honestly, at $45,000, I was probably paying too much, but I was like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I want to give her some money. It's $45,000. But I also had a hedge fund that I was selling to at the time that they don't necessarily care about a profit. They have a certain allocated amount of capital that they have to get out. They get it out. Hedge funds were paying over value for houses at the time. And so instead of rehabbing it, I reached out to the hedge fund and I was like, hey, would you guys be interested in this? And the hedge fund bought it from me at 55. And so yes. And so at closing, I was able to call her and have her come, and we handed her over a $10,000 check at closing.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
And it was the coolest moment in the world. And it reminded me, like, this is why I do what I do. Like, I get to help people. I get to care for people. I get to, like, this lady's life was, it sounds so, like, for a lot of, $10,000 is life-changing money for a lot of people. And I got to be a part of the small part. And for me, it didn't take any extra work. Like, I'm not going to miss that $10,000.
No.
And so it was, that is my favorite deal. I think about it all the time. I actually took a picture of the house and I printed it off, and I put it on my wall at not here in Maui, but in my office in St. Louis, just so I could remember, like, hey, this is what it's about. This is what it's about. Yeah. So it's not always people. About the money.
Well, it's crazy too. Like, it's very easy to get into your own little bubble.
Yeah.
And think about all your own problems and everything, and forget that people have way bigger problems. And like, even imagining like a $45,000 home that exists.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's in the United States. That's shocking to me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's not a nice home.
That's but
people
still
live in it all the time.
Like those exist in comparison to what we're paying for home value here.
Yeah. And I think, walking houses has given me, a lot of people are like, you must, like, it's one of two things. Either it makes you really jaded and, like, people are terrible and disgusting, or it makes you empathetic and compassionate. Right. And I think that for me, it's made me the exact opposite of, like, there are so many people that, like, with this lady, like, she was just dealt a, like, her house didn't become distressed because of her just not caring, or of her, not trying. Like, she had been dealt a very terrible hand, and had done everything that she could to get out of it, and just couldn't. And so, like, it made me empathetic. Or I walk houses a lot of times with mental illness where, they're, the person that owns it's just kind of crazy, you know, and I don't know what mental illness it is. And so where there's dog feces everywhere and there's cat feces and they haven't cleaned in years and there's a pile of trash and dishes, and it's just, it's like, it's made me think more empathetic of like, there's so many hurting people and like what's caused you to be like this, I guess. And think through like the root cause of like what's caused you to be like this.
You didn't choose this.
There's been some definite trauma in your life that has led you to where you are at, versus, you know, on the opposite side of the spectrum, there's people that get into it and are like, I just hate people because I see how people, you know. And so I've definitely erred on the side of like getting to experience like walking houses. It's honestly been a really fun thing because I get to like be with those people and
it's associated you to like their humanity.
Yes, exactly. And there, every once in a while there's houses where you walk where you do feel like you're just a terrible human being.
You're terrible.
Like I've definitely had to call CPS before.
You have?
Oh yeah.
Are you able to share like what happened?
Well, I mean, I don't know what's happened after I've left, but there's
Were you just watching like actual child abuse?
No, but more so in the living situation. Like,
these children should not be living here.
I've never seen a parent physically abuse their children, but I've walked houses where there's been drug paraphernalia sitting out. There's been it's just not a safe living environment, and for those that it breaks my heart, and I feel bad, you know, but it's also I couldn't live with myself without at least having somebody go check on the kids and make sure that it's a healthy living environment, because there's houses where there's needles, there's open needles, and there's a 2-year-old playing on the ground.
Oh my gosh.
So that going back to like another just memorable story though. And this one's fun because I did everything wrong on it and was able to get a huge wholesale deal out of it.
Really?
Yeah. It was I made a huge error on it. So it was a house down in the city, and it was a duplex. And so when I was comping the house or the duplex, I was looking at other duplexes in the area. So I was buying the entire building. So it was both sides of both sides.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at the other duplexes in the area that had sold, and the numbers on it said, you know, it's a $300,000 house. You know, it needs $100,000 in repairs. You know, I think it was actually more than that. It was like $150,000 in repairs. I think I ended up buying it for like $145,000.
That's a lot of repair.
Yeah, I mean, it needed everything.
Basically, just the foundation and the bones stay the same, and the roof, or
yeah, with 145 on, you know, with a duplex, you've got 2 kitchens. I think that was 2 bed, 2 baths on each side. So you've got 2 kitchens, 4 bathrooms. You've got, you know, the paint, floors, electrical, any sort of plumbing. You've got the HVAC, and I don't remember exactly what was wrong with it, but.
That adds up.
100, that doesn't go super far. A lot of times actually. So, but I ended up buying it for like $145,000. And I don't know the exact numbers on it. I think it was around there, and, thought I was going to be able to shop it and make like $15,000 on a wholesale. I was like, you know, somebody will buy this around $160,000. And so I shopped it out at 160. And my phone blew up. There were so many people that wanted to see it. And I think I ended up getting, you know, multiple offers, and I got one almost immediately at $70,000 over where I shopped it at. And I was like, what are people seeing in this that I didn't see? So I legitimately asked the guy, and this is when I was newer to it, and what everybody was seeing, and I just didn't know this, I didn't know the area, is it was a really popular area to buy duplexes and then convert it into a single family. So you blow out the walls in the middle, and in that area, those houses are going for $550, $600.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
they were seeing a $200,000 spread.
Yeah. Well, it would have cost more to rehab it.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Though, if you add that in, $300K. And then at 550, it'd be 250,000 right there.
Well, so I think like his numbers was he bought it right around over 200 from me, and then probably is going to be putting 200 into it just to get it into, because you have to with a single family, or turning it into a single family, you're basically gutting it on the inside and redoing the entire layout. So he
made 150.
Yeah. I don't know how much he made on it, but I just had ran my numbers wrong. Where I probably should have, if I knew better, I would have ran it as a 550. times 0.8 minus 200. Let's see what that comes out to. So I would have bought it 75%, but 550 times 0.75 equals minus 200 equals. So I'd have bought it at 212 and probably tried to sell it at 230, 240. So that was a great one that I did everything wrong in. So
wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
dude, that's awesome. I guess like, tell me about the dead people.
Yeah. So
it's crazy, dude. I can't even imagine.
I've only one dead person.
Like a while.
So
were they there for a while?
No. It's a funny story. So
it's a funny story.
I mean, the guy died, so I guess it's not that funny. But just how it happened is I got a call, and it was a person who was like, hey, my dad passed away. I want to sell his house. So like, all right, love it. I'll come check it out. That happens all the time. We look at inherited houses all the time. So that there was nothing out of the usual. And so I go and I walk the house, and I'm walking from room to room, and I open up a door in one of the bedrooms, and his dad's laying there dead on the bed.
They didn't move him or anything? Like the
dad had died that morning. Literally, I had to have been the first call once his dad died.
Jeez. Oh my gosh. No time.
And it was actually weird because it was super normal. Like the house was distressed, but it was more grandma or grandpa distressed, where it wasn't like, so wouldn't have expected that, and opened up and he's just dead there.
Wow.
On the bed. Yeah.
That's uncomfortable.
It was really awkward. I did not call. I thought about it, of calling the police and just being like, hey, there's a dead body here. I don't know. I didn't, because it seemed, I guess everything just checked out enough to where it seemed normal-ish.
Yeah. Okay. You didn't buy that place?
No, I made an offer on it for sure, but I didn't buy it.
Okay.
We didn't end up getting that one, but that one was it wasn't super traumatic in the sense that there was a dead person, and that was awkward and weird, but it was fine.
Do you have friends that have experienced crazy stuff? I guess what would really happen?
I don't know. I've definitely been some friends that have seen some things, but I feel like I've seen there's been nothing that any of us have seen that probably the other person hasn't. I've never.
You just do enough volume and see that stuff.
I've never walked a house where it's like there's dead bodies laying on the floor from, I don't know.
Yeah. But I guess I couldn't imagine a situation where that would be.
So there are a couple of the crazier dead people stories though. I did walk a house where that the body was out now, but the guy had died and in his bed, and then they didn't find him for 4 months. And so he basically rotted, and he was on the second story, and his body seeped through the bed or off the bed onto the floors. And they had to call in a hazmat team, and they basically just completely gutted that. So they were telling me the reason that this floor is not here anymore and the slub floor is gone is because the guy died in the bed, and it just, yeah. Grody. So I don't know what all the body fluids, what happens when you decompose, but apparently you decompose all over the place.
Jeez.
Yeah. So wow. that one was a little strange. And that one was because he decomposed there. And then I've walked houses where there's been murders and there's still crime scene tape up. And there's still blood.
Sheesh.
Yeah. And this is probably the most triggering one, for people.
Okay, so stop listening if you have easy triggers.
So I walked one where it was a single mom, and she called me, and her son had committed in the house, and so she had to get rid of the house, and he was not there anymore, but he had shot himself, and you could still see the everything there splattered all over the walls.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
So that was tough, especially with her being there.
Gosh.
That one was this just happened recently, and it's still on the walls, and it's
feel it when you're
there's a heaviness over the house. I ended up buying that house actually.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was tough. Just because of the like, I don't know, with murders, typically, I guess I just have never walked a house where it was that fresh and also that personal, where it was like, my son did this and now I can't live here anymore because I have those memories. So that's
terrible.
Yeah, that one was dark. I did not like that. And then, there's so many houses where you walk out and you've got fleas jumping all over you, or like, yeah, that's normal. That's
okay. Do you have like a funny story to end on?
Funny story.
Yeah. Something's like funny, like that was a very interesting interaction, or wow, that was very hilarious what just happened right there.
Yeah, I have, I don't
Even
know
with like
how
contractors or anything
G-rated
like that.
this is.
Okay, let's hear it.
So I walked a house that obviously the guy was shooting videos in his house.
Wow.
Yes, and he had all of these different sexual objects that he used.
Wow.
Yes.
On himself?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that.
Weird. Are you talking like, okay, never mind. I mean, like what would be like a thing?
I don't know. It looks like the microphone, maybe. I don't know. Things like that.
Oh gosh.
Terrible. And we're downstairs and there's a shelf, and behind the shelf is the HVAC, and we're just trying to get a better look at the HVAC. And so we need to move the shelf, and I'm just grabbing things off the shelf, and I grab one and I'm holding it in my hand, and I've got two friends there, Pat and Alyssa, and I lose it. I was barehanded, grab it, and I'm just holding it. And then I throw it on the ground, like almost have a panic attack. Cause I just don't know where that's been. What's that? That's touched.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I didn't like that. No. I did not like that. Yeah. So that was not fun for me at all.
The guy was there or no?
The guy was there. He wasn't in the basement though.
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah.
Sheesh.
But he was fine. Like, I mean, he had an entire room set up for this. Like legitimately a room set up to do filming with a bunch of his, I don't know, toys, or I don't know what that stuff is. This is awkward for me.
Toys.
Yeah. So toys. He wasn't like hiding that from us.
Oh my gosh. It's weird.
So hopefully the one downstairs hadn't been used. But there's a thing that in the industry, a lot of us, we call them like gas station showers.
Yeah.
Where you walk a house like that and you go to the nearest gas station and you basically just take a shower.
Just rinse off.
Yeah, in the faucet, where you're scrubbing yourself down. Like if you have any exposed skin, there's been multiple houses where the smell is terrible. There's bugs or this, where I'm just scrubbing myself down any exposed skin.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and there's been houses where I've taken off my clothes and driven home in my underwear because I don't want my clothes in the front seat of my car.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like all this to make $1 million.
Yeah. Cause I've got a truck. And so I'd throw like my shoes and my clothes in the back of the truck and then drive home in my underwear. Cause it just was so gross. That's typically bug houses though.
Wow. Well, I mean, at least it has a story now. At least you got a story with all this stuff.
And it's fun. It's interesting. You get to see a lot of things. And
you don't still walk houses anymore?
Not often. Especially cause I'm here in Maui, but when I go back, like, so we were back in December and I walked houses, and I'll go back. I think I'm going back in a couple of weeks, and I'm only there for a couple of days, so I probably won't. But then I'll be back for 3 or 4 weeks in July, and I'll probably walk a lot of houses then.
What role, like what person on your team walks houses for you now?
Our acquisition managers. Yeah.
Okay. So how many of those do you have?
So right now, 1, 2, 3, 4.
4 acquisition managers. That's cool. They work only for you?
Yeah. Yeah. One of them is also like our realtor. And so,
oh, cool.
Yeah. And he's a realtor on, for other people as well, not just us. But he does some acquisitions for us, and we'll go walk houses. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So,
that's fun. So you just you pay them a percentage and stuff?
And they're commission based. And so for every house that they find, they get paid a percentage off of the profit of that deal. So it's not for every deal that they find. It's every deal that we close on and sell.
Make a profit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they get profit of that. But they're out walking houses and checking out houses. And
so that just makes me ask before we close up this episode, and maybe we can have a whole episode on this, is like kind of scaling a team, but like what are the roles you have within your company now to do the volume you do?
Yeah. So it's me and my wife.
Right.
Yeah. We run the business together. She does a phenomenal job. And when we first started, it was essentially I found the houses. So I dealt with everything from finding the deal, you know, negotiating with the sellers, running comps, getting the deal under contract, to closing. And then my wife would kind of take it from there and, you know, flip the property, whether we were keeping it as a rental or we were flipping it. If we were wholesaling it, I was still very involved in that. But now we've kind of scaled to the point where we've got, still me and my wife, we've got a project manager. We've got a maintenance tech. We've got a couple of VAs that work for us that just help with like turning on utilities, turning off utilities. On the rental side of the business, we have a couple of VAs that are helping like vet applications, listing properties, all that good stuff. And then we've got a maintenance tech on the property management side as well. Like if anything happens to a house, he gets an update in Buildium and goes and takes care of it.
Nice.
And then we've got a marketing manager who manages our marketing, because we do direct to seller marketing. So she's in charge of do the direct mail, Google AdWords, any retargeting. We have a lead manager, which is essentially if anybody calls in off of our direct mail or anything, she's the person. She's kind of, we like to call her like the seller's advocate, where she's the person that's talking with the seller before she sets up an acquisition manager to go and see it.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we've got a lead manager who is kind of the first line of defense. Anytime we have a lead come in, especially direct to seller, she's the one that's working with those people.
Nice.
Yeah, and she's great. And we have some like KPIs that you have to, you know, call back within 3 minutes of a lead coming in or answer it live. And then she also does, I mean, even a little bit of like acquisition. She'll go walk houses sometimes, but not really. But she's like going through, one of her roles is going through like dead leads or leads that we had that we ended up converting on and just seeing if they have sold.
Yeah.
And if they haven't sold, kind of bringing them back to life.
Nice.
Yeah. So just helping us find leads, and 4 acquisition managers that are out there looking for houses for us. And then we have a CFO that helps manage our finances, because there's just so much going on with the finances and whatnot. And then those would be all like W-2. I mean, we have like this is more personal, a business coach. And then on the project management side of things, that's where it gets, where we have a lot of people, but those guys don't work for us. Those are 1099 guys. Most of them, like, we're their only source of business that they do, but they don't work. We don't tell them when to show up or where to show up.
Right.
They can go get other jobs. So we just try and keep them busy enough that they don't have to go get other jobs. So I wouldn't consider those people like my employee, or they're not my employees. They can do whatever they want. So,
and they're on like the flipping side of things and stuff. Usually.
Yeah. So we've got we probably have 6 crew leads. But then under every single one of those, they've got multiple people on their crew.
I would like to do an episode where I understand what that scaling of your team looked like.
Yeah.
You know, the process of that, the timeline. Who did you select first to hire? Then who was next after that? And like what stages of like growth do you really look at hiring the next person? I think that would be a very interesting thing, because I think scaling to where you're profiting $1 million a year, you could profit $1 million a year with a smaller team and probably do less volume. Like easily. But now you're profiting $1 million a year, and you don't have to be involved in all those different things you just mentioned.
I don't, but then I also have to be involved at a high level in everything. And
100%.
So I sometimes think about that. You know, I think one of the things that it does do is that it sets us up to go to 200 houses a year, 3, you know, if we wanted to do that, which is great.
And if you did do that, now you can really step back and be like, man, do I have a person that takes over all this?
Like a COO or something. But I do think of that a lot, where a lot of people, it might not make sense to do what I've done, where it's like you could do 30 houses a year. Like my wife and I, we've literally from year one have never really vastly changed our income that we've brought in. We've just been able to hire more people and have a different quality of life.
Yeah.
So, but you could do 25 houses a year by yourself and with your wife, and probably make, close to $1 million, depending on your spreads on that. Maybe it's only $20,000 a house, but you're making over $500,000 a year, just you two. And so that like, with hiring more people, it doesn't necessarily mean more profit. It just means that without the people that we have, we would never be able to live in Hawaii. Yeah. So that was what was important to us. So I think like lifestyles is when you're scaling a team, you have to think through like what is important to you. And for me, money is pretty far down the list.
Yeah.
Living in a place that I love, being able to hang out with my kids.
So what money buys you?
Yes. And so for us, the scaling of the team was like, hey, if I can still make this amount of money, but be able to do it when I'm living in Hawaii and have a little bit more freedom versus, hey, if somebody calls me, I've got to jump in my car and go and drive and walk a house. Now I've got other people that are able to do that. That for us was really important.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
So I think it's a personal preference where we could be doing 40 houses a year, just my wife and I, and make just as much money as we're making right now.
Yeah.
But
that's rad.
Yeah. But also it's fun to have a team because all of the people on our team, they're compensated very well.
And they're well compensated.
Yeah. You get to like be a part of that.
That's awesome, dude. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we'll talk about that stuff. I think it'd be fun to do a whole episode. This was fun, dude. A lot of stories. I'm surprised at the things that you've experienced there. Yeah. Well, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I won't take a long time doing an outro, but if you like the episode, leave us a nice rating and a review. They're free episodes. And if you want to know more about our programs and what it looks like to receive mentoring or coaching from Cameron, or look into any of our resources to help real estate agents real estate investors grow their portfolios, make a lot more money, you can look into dealflowrealestate.com. And until our next episode,
let's do it.
Later.
Peace.